So what really makes you stick with a brand? I mean, really stick with them. Is it just the product, the price, maybe the perks? Well, it turns out there's a whole science to it. And today, we're going to break down the blueprint for customer loyalty, all based on the fantastic research of Professor Alexander Chernoff. Let's jump right in.
All right, let's start with the billion-dollar question every single business is asking. What actually makes a customer loyal? What turns a one-time buyer into a raving fan for life? It's so easy to just say, oh, make a good product. But the real answer, the actual mechanism of loyalty, it is so much more interesting than that.
The absolute foundation of all of this is something Professor Chernoff calls functional loyalty. Now, we're not talking about some deep emotional connection just yet. This is purely about performance. Does the thing you sell do what it's supposed to do? And does it do it well? It really all boils down to one single critical feeling: satisfaction.
So, let's build this from the ground up, starting with that foundation, satisfaction. It sounds simple, right? But believe me, getting this part right is the first and frankly the most critical step. If you get this wrong, absolutely nothing else we're about to talk about is going to work.
See, here's where a lot of companies get it twisted. Satisfaction isn't just about meeting a customer's needs. It's about meeting their expectations. You can absolutely solve their problem, but if the experience doesn't line up with what they thought was going to happen, you failed. That little gap between expectation and reality, that gap is everything.
And this is all perfectly captured in this really powerful framework called the expectancy disconfirmation model. I know, it sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually incredibly simple. It just says that we judge every single experience we have against a mental benchmark we've already set. And the outcome of that comparison, well, that determines exactly how we feel.
Let's just break this down real quick. So, if your needs are met and the experience confirms what you expected, you're satisfied. Easy enough. If it falls short, you're dissatisfied. But, and this is key, if the experience goes beyond your expectations, that's where you get real delight. But look at that last one. If you meet their needs but they had super low expectations to begin with, the result is just indifference. They're not loyal, they're just there.
And this is why knowing what your specific customer expects is so crucial. Think about it. For a FedEx customer sending a super urgent document, the one and only expectation is speed. Get it there fast. But for a massive company using a Maersk container ship, the critical expectation isn't speed, it's predictability. They need that on-time delivery to manage their entire supply chain. It's the same industry, shipping, but totally different benchmarks for what satisfaction even means.
And here is probably the most important takeaway from this whole section. The pain of a bad experience is felt so much more intensely than the joy of a good one. Psychologists have a term for this. It's called loss aversion. Basically, we hate losing way more than we love winning. And what that means for business is that failing to meet expectations causes massive damage. The lesson here? Don't overpromise. It is so much better to set a clear, achievable expectation and just nail it every single time.
Okay, so you've nailed satisfaction. You're hitting those expectations. Now what? Well, now you get to actively encourage loyalty with rewards. But as we're about to see, not all rewards are created equal. The design is everything.
Now, loyalty programs usually offer two types of rewards. You've got your hard benefits. These are the tangible things you can actually count, like cashback or points or frequent flyer miles. And then you have soft benefits. These are all about status and the experience. Think about priority boarding on a plane or getting a dedicated customer service line. They're designed to make the customer feel important, feel special. And this brings us to a really fascinating psychological puzzle. I mean, logically, cash should be the ultimate reward, shouldn't it? You can use it on literally anything. But study after study shows that customers are way more motivated by non-monetary rewards, like points and miles. So why is that?
It's because points and miles perform a kind of mental magic trick. They completely remove the pain of paying that we all feel when we're spending actual hard-earned money. They let us get something a little indulgent, like a vacation or a fancy dinner, without any of the guilt. We sort of put these points into a separate fun account in our heads, and because we feel like we earned them, it feels like we have a right to indulge. It's a completely guilt-free luxury. But here's the thing. It's not just about the prize at the end. The journey itself, the chase to get that reward, is often an even more powerful motivator.
This whole idea is explained by a fascinating principle called the goal gradient effect. And get this, it was first discovered by scientists watching rats in mazes. They noticed the rats would literally start running faster as they got closer to the cheese at the end. And, well, it turns out we're not all that different.
Our motivation just skyrockets when the finish line is in sight. A brilliant study at a coffee shop showed this perfectly. They gave customers a super simple punch card. Buy 10 coffees and you get the next one free. That's it. Then they just sat back and measured the time between each coffee purchase. And the results were just striking. The time between the 9th and the 10th purchase was a full 20% shorter than the time between the first and second. I mean, think about that. As soon as that free coffee felt like it was within reach, customers started coming back faster and faster. That goal was literally pulling them in. And of course, smart companies use this trick everywhere. That credit card sign-up bonus you see advertised, it's designed to get you spending quickly to hit that first goal. That little progress bar in your airline app showing you're so close to the next status tier, that's the goal gradient effect in action, pushing you to book just one more flight. It's all about making the goal feel tangible, attainable, and most importantly, close. Okay, so we've talked about the carrot, the rewards that pull customers in and keep them engaged. Now we have to flip to the other side of the equation, the stick that makes it really, really hard for them to leave. These are what we call switching costs. And make no mistake, these are intentional barriers. They can be financial, procedural, or even psychological. And a customer has to overcome them if they want to take their business somewhere else. To put it bluntly, it's a penalty for being disloyal. And these costs usually come in three main flavors. You've got financial costs, which are the obvious ones, like a contract termination fee or losing all your accumulated points. Then there are procedural costs, which are all about hassle, the time and effort it takes to fill out a mountain of paperwork or transfer all your data. And finally, there are psychological costs, which is just the mental energy it takes to learn a whole new product or a new interface. You want to see a master of psychological switching costs? Look no further than Apple. iMessage, iCloud, the way your AirPods just magically connect to your Mac, it all just works. The thought of leaving that beautiful, integrated ecosystem and having to relearn a completely new way of doing everything, that's a powerful barrier. It keeps customers loyal, even if a competitor comes out with a phone that's technically a little bit better. So there we have it. You've got rewards pulling customers in, and you've got switching costs that are keeping them from leaving. And this brings us to the final and most crucial piece of this entire puzzle, finding the right balance between the two. It really is the classic carrot and stick approach. Carrots entice people, and sticks penalize them. The absolute best loyalty strategies use a bit of both. But you have to be careful. If you lean too heavily on the stick, if you make it too hard to leave, you don't build loyalty, you just build resentment. And that leaves us with this final, critical question that you have to ask about any loyalty program, maybe even your own. Is it a reward or is it a trap? Are you actually building genuine loyalty by providing real value, or are you just making it too painful for people to leave? Because when your customers feel trapped, well, that's not loyalty, that's a hostage situation, and those never, ever last.